Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and today I want to share with you my top 5 books on hijab for children of all audiences. And I also want to share with you another few books that I think would complement your discussions on hijab. And again, these are for all audiences. Ones that are specifically for Muslim children, I will point them out to you and also explain why they're actually good for everyone. Okay, so I want to dive into the ones specifically on hijab first and talk about those, and then we will move out from there. So the first book I want to share with you is actually my favorite hijab book of all time. I absolutely love this one, and if you could only choose one hijab book, I would highly recommend this one. It's called Under My Hijab by Hinachan, or Hinachan, however you want to pronounce it. And Alia Jalil is the illustrator. And the reason why I love this book so much is that it gives you a glimpse into what Muslim families or a Muslimah or a Muslim woman's life is like, both in and outside of the home. And you're not ever going to see her inside private home life unless you are part of the family or one of her female friends, or say, one of the male relatives who can see her hair. So that would include her sons and her husband, of course, and her father, her brothers, grandfather. So it's not just a blood relative. There's a very specific, criteria for who is considered a mahram, which means that they can see your hair and they cannot marry you. And so those are the only people who are really going to see your inner life, and really even less so, I think it's really just your spouse or your siblings or your children. Okay, so given that you're not going to have a glimpse into a woman's life, this book gives you that glimpse because it's a picture book, and I think it does an excellent job. I think it is so accurate. I love the descriptions of the women. I love what their work is outside the home or even within the home, and then what their private life looks like. I think it is a really accurate description. I think the women are of all different backgrounds. Their hijabs are all unique. Their hair is all unique. It is a variety. Their work is also unique. It's just not, it's not your typical, I'm going to say typical, like what you might imagine a typical life would be like for a Muslim woman. This is the typical, actually. Let's put it that way. This is what it typically is like. You have women who are working and wearing hijab, like this woman here who is an artist, and then you go home and you look at her hair and it's completely dyed in all these different colors. You would never know that, and yet there are women who do that. And then you have this woman here who is like a camp counselor or a naturalist, and she includes a hat with her scarf. And then, then she's here, that's like light colored hair, and you may just think that Muslim women who cover are of one ethnicity or nationality, and really Muslims are all over the world, and they have all different colors and all different skin colors and all different hair colors and skin colors and different ways to wear their hijab. Now, there are some requirements from the Islamic perspective on hijab wearing, and I don't want to go into that specifically because some of the outfits may not be the ones that I particularly will wear or feel like they are, I guess, what's accepted for hijab. But I want to put those opinions aside for a moment and say that however you decide to wear hijab or however you see another person wearing hijab, there is no room for criticism from anyone else. That is that person's journey, and you really don't know where they are on that journey. They may be going towards wearing more modest clothes and begin with something that you would say, I would never wear that. Anyway, no criticism is allowed and no comments. And you let people go on their journey however it is. You definitely can offer advice if you have permission to do so. And one other thing, and this is really aside from the book completely, but if you know someone wears hijab and they completely cover, and suppose suppose they tie their hair up in a braid, for instance, and their braid falls out of their ponytail or falls out and it's showing, outside of their scarf, and that's like legitimately an accident, then yes, like absolutely you can tell them like, oh, by the way, your hair fell out or whatever. That's appreciated because that's like an accident, a mistake, an oversight. But if it's intentional that maybe your bangs or your fringe is always showing, then it's not okay for you to say, hey, your hair is showing, because they know that their hair is showing and that's just their journey. So completely an aside from the picture books that I wanted to share with you, but I have a lot of thoughts on hijab. So anyway, I love this book for that purpose, that it really gives you, in my opinion, an accurate insight on what private life is like for women who wear hijab and what they look like in public, and that kind of that change. And then my next favorite book that I want to share with you is The Proudest Blue. This is by Olympic medalist Ibtihaj Muhammad, and the reason why I love this book as well, but still it's second behind Under My Hijab, is because this goes through a little girl's journey to her first day of wearing hijab and the whole process of choosing the hijab that she wants to wear for her first day, and then her journey on her first day. And there's some curiosity around it, and maybe some mean comments, and maybe there's some explanation that goes along with it. The whole journey in a single day is really a beautiful story, and it has inspired me to think about my first day and everything surrounding that, and the challenges and the celebrations around that. It's really scary if you go from showing your hair, whatever age you are, to completely covering it, and you feel like everybody is staring at you in that moment. And some people maybe are. And then after a while, it becomes you, and you don't even think about it anymore. And you don't even think that people are staring, and you don't even see it even if they are. Anyway, I really love this book. I love the story. I love the little girl, the little sibling to the big girl. I love that looking up to a role model, whether it's your own sister or a friend or a parent, and the illustrations. I love the illustrations. Everything about this book is just really spot on. So this one is my second most highly recommended book for hijab picture books. The third one, and really the only one that's designed, in my opinion, for young Muslim women, young girls, older girls, whatever you want to call that age range. I apologize. I probably am calling it all wrong. But it's this book called How to Get Hijab Ready by Aisha Elwan and Megan Wyatt. It's illustrated by Sarah Hafiz. And the reason why I like this book is because it goes through like almost step by step of all the things that as a young Muslim woman you might be concerned about as you embark on your hijab journey. And the reason why this is directed towards a more Muslim audience, but the reason why I think that it's for all audiences is that it gives you insight on what young Muslim women are maybe thinking and feeling when they embark on that journey. Then when you wear hijab, another person isn't going to know how comfortable you are with it, how long you've worn it, even if it's your first day or not. And so coming to it with some sensitivity, I think, is really helpful, because you most certainly can ask questions, but sometimes it's really uncomfortable for a very young person to answer questions, especially if they're right there with their mom. But sometimes another person will feel more comfortable asking a young person versus an adult. It just feels like a little bit more of a safe space. So this book will help you if you are a young person who is embarking on your hijab journey. This book will help you get prepared, find clothing, and then what I think is so important is help you with dialogue, because people are going to ask you questions. People are going to comment. Even well-meaning adults are going to comment and say things that may feel patronizing if you feel more adult for doing this, and someone's like patting you on the head and saying that you look so cute, and it's like an uncle or an auntie, and you're just like, that's not what I was going for. And so this book is going to help you with that. And it's also going to help everyone else who is then around young people who are wearing hijab to choose the right words to help them on that journey and not to diminish what they're doing. So this book is also written by a friend of mine and illustrated by a friend of mine, and it's a mother-daughter team who wrote this book, and so it is especially close to my heart, and so I do even like it more for that reason. So I am biased for this book because it is part of our community, and so I am going to rave about it even more so than if it wasn't something that a friend wrote. I might be more critical of it is what I'm trying to say, but I'm just going to say really lovely things about it because it is written by a friend, and I am just blinded by the fact that it's written by a friend of mine. So anyway, really good resource, and I haven't seen anything else available like it. There could be, I haven't found anything. So there could be other resources that are similar to this, but for what I know, this is the only one that I know for this age group, which is around 8 to 11 years old. And really, honestly, you could do even younger and older. Okay, the next book I want to share with you is called What Color is My Hijab? And I really like this book for its creative way of talking about hijab. So it begins with hijab is the crown I wear every day, which is a really beautiful way to envision what your hijab is. But I also want to say that hijab is just a word that we have begun to use to explain the Muslim the dress of a Muslim woman. It's more than just a headscarf. It's the rest of your clothes have to adhere to certain criteria, and also, which is really important that we often overlook, it's also a behavior. So your behavior also matches your clothing. So if you're wearing modest clothing but you're not behaving modestly, then it's not really hijab. And there are also criteria for that. So it's not just, oh, I think this is modest or you think this is modest. There's actually a criteria for the dress code. So it isn't just that everyone chooses their own way to do it, but you are going to see variety because people are going to have their own style or their own colors and patterns and regional cultural influences on the hijab. Okay, so that being said, this book is specifically talking about the head covering, which actually most of the books that I'm sharing today, except for how to get hijab ready, are really just talking about the head covering, which today we are just calling it hijab, even though that is not really the correct way to describe it. But that's just for communication, that's what we're going to say. And for many years, I just called it a scarf because, you know, that's what I called it growing up in America and using just words that were part of the vocabulary. Okay, so this book is super inspiring in the fact that these young girls, this young child or young girl is looking at these role models in her life, and they might be scientists or athletes or doctors, and they wear a particular color hijab, which you do not need to wear a particular color hijab for any kind of profession. But she's just saying, oh, you know, I know someone who wears a black hijab. She's an athlete. She's healthy and fast. When I want to have strength, I wear a black hijab. And I love, love, love that because it brings that connection to your role model. And it shows this imitation, like I want to embody those behaviors. So I want to dress like her and I want to wear a hijab that's the same color that she wears. I love, love, love that whole unique, creative way of looking at this because truly we are all role models for someone. No matter what, we are role models for someone. So let's keep that in mind, and let's also work on ourselves to be honorable role models for the people around us. And so I really love this book for this reason. So I know someone in a purple hijab. She is a model. She is graceful and stylish. When I want to look beautiful, I wear a purple hijab. Here's someone who flies large airplanes and wears a blue hijab. So when I want to feel important, I want to wear a blue hijab. I know that you could probably potentially find some issues with some of the professions or some of the correlations with the profession, with the behavior. But overall, I would put those aside as well and just really take from this book the beauty of role models and trying to imitate those people in your lives who has that characteristic that you want to embody. The last book of the, top 5 hijab books that I have that I want to share with you is called Nani's Hijab. And I want to just start out by saying the illustrations are breathtaking, but my daughter and I absolutely do not like the story, but I really want to share it with you today because this could be really, really applicable to your situation. Since it is not applicable to our situation, I found the story a little bit triggering, especially since one of the situations that happens in the book happened to me, and I didn't like the story at all. However, the illustrations are so beautiful. I love all the colors, and the storyline might be really important. Maybe not so much for you as a person or a parent who is raising a person to wear hijab. Maybe this is really applicable for you if you've got children who are amongst women or girls who wear hijab, to know there are some things that are okay and not okay to do. Okay, so this book is about a little girl who wears hijab. She goes to school every day. She wears a different color, and all her classmates are just really enjoying everything that she's wearing. They're so excited to see the next color that she's going to wear, etc., etc. But then there's this new girl that comes to school. She's very unkind. She's a bit of a bully. She doesn't like her hijab, and she does something that's really horrific in my opinion. And she rips that girl's hijab off her head. And even just saying it just sends chills through me because it's such a horrendous thing to do. There are a lot of things in life that are horrendous things to do. I don't want to diminish other horrendous things by speaking about this. But as a woman who wears hijab, it's super not okay ever to touch another woman's hijab without permission. I might go up to a friend and say, "Oh, I really like that scarf. What is it made out? Can I feel it?" Because we're looking for maybe a particular fabric, or we like the detail, whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about another person may not touch a woman's hijab, especially in an aggressive manner. It is so off limits. It is so disrespectful. I cannot even imagine that someone would think that it's okay to do that, and much less rip another woman's hijab off. I want you to imagine it as being completely naked is the horrifying feeling that it is if someone takes off your hijab. Now, I know for other people who don't wear hijab and you're thinking, "Oh, what's the big deal?" It's not, it's just your hair. Imagine if someone just completely ripped all of your clothes off for a moment, and imagine that's how it feels like. And it may not exactly feel like that, but the violation feels like that. So anyway, this book resulted in a lot of emotions for me personally, and my daughter did not like it because it did have a lot of harsh language, in my opinion, and some situations that were really disturbing for her. She is 9 years old, and she is not wearing hijab, and that is something that she is looking forward to in her future, inshallah. And to have something like this was actually really destructive for her rather than inspiring. So I would not recommend this for you if you are trying to bring hijab to your daughters or your nieces or friends as an inspiring story. This, I think, would be for someone who has worn hijab, who has a stout heart, who can handle this kind of situation, or maybe a person who is in a classroom with a student who's wearing hijab. This might be, and a parent, a teacher will know best if this is an appropriate book for the person that you have in mind, but maybe for just how to behave when you have a student in the classroom wearing hijab, you might consider it. Okay, but maybe not, because it's also, I don't want to encourage, say, bad behaviors, like, "Oh, well, what would happen if, I touched her hijab or took it off or yanked it or whatever." I don't want to encourage bad behaviors. Okay, so those are the 5 books that we have on hijab, but I also want to share with you about 5 or 6 more books that I think can complement the whole discussion around hijab. And the first book I want to share with you of these books is my favorite book. It's called Yafa and Fatima, Shalom and Salam, and it is adapted by it might be a Hebrew tale. It's basically about a Jewish woman and a Muslim woman. And so let me just read to you this right here. This story was inspired by a tale that is said to have both Jewish and Arab origins. And so it was originally about two brothers. And so I love this book so much. It's about two women, and it is their love for one another, their similarities and their differences. And I don't want to dilute all the religions and just focus on the similarities, because that doesn't bring the uniqueness of each of these religions. But there is brotherhood, or maybe that's not the right word. There is the Abrahamic religion. So you have Christianity and Judaism and Islam. They all come from the unoriginal source, from a source, the same source, but they have changed over time. And so you have Judaism, or Jews first, and then you have the Christians, and then you have the Muslims. And so the stories of the Jews are this, or rather the prophets, they're the same that Muslims have, and the same with the Christians, the same that the Muslims have. Like, this is one long family tree. And so, some people don't know that, so I just thought I'd share that. Okay, so this is in the beautiful land of milk and honey. There live two neighbors. So Yafa is the Jewish girl and Fatima is the Muslim girl, or woman rather. Yafa is the Jewish woman and Fatima is the Muslim woman. And they're both date farmers, and they both love each other and share their dates with one another, invite each other over, their friends. But then it also explains that Yafa prays in the synagogue and Fatima prays in the mosque, and they both love God. And then Yafa reads from her Siddur in the morning and Fatima reads from her Quran in the morning. And what I really like about this story is that it is very even. You do not see one woman superior over the other. So it really, really feels very unbiased from my perspective. You may notice other things that I don't notice, but I find it to be a really beautiful story that's very level and speaks of the beauty of charity and friendship and religion. I just love it so, so much. So this is Yafa and Fatima, Shalom and Salam, and it's adapted by Fauzia Jilani Williams. And what I love about this book versus some other picture books is this is a book that I could read over and over and over and over again, and I would be okay with that. I get really tired of reading the same picture books over and over again, but this is one that I could just read over and over again, and I also love the illustrations. Okay, so then my next favorite that I want to share with you is called My Two Blankets, and this book is also going to be related to two other books that I want to share with you about displacement, about refugees, about moving, about the lonesomeness of having to leave your land, mostly not by choice, mostly because you have to, because of war or famine or some other destructive situation. And then I've got two books on Malala that I want to share with you. So this is called My Two Blankets, and it's about a little girl who has to leave her home country, and then now she's in a brand new land, and she doesn't know the words. Everything is different. And I did move when I was younger. There was this moment in time. I was born in France, but we're not French. I'm half American, half Arab. But we were living in France. I was born there. I lived there till I was almost 8. I moved to the States for the first time for my family. They were moving back. And there was a time when I was in school and I was losing my French really fast and not being able to catch up on my English fast enough. And so there was a time where I felt almost mute, where I just couldn't express myself. I couldn't speak and communicate in a way that I was understood. It was kind of horrifying for that few months where I would be using French words with my friends and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I relate to just a little bit of this story where this young girl just doesn't know how to, or can't fit in because she doesn't know the language and everything is so different. So it's about her 2 blankets, and her old blanket is the one that she grew up with. It has all the words that she knows. It's familiar. And then she's in this new land and she doesn't know anything. And I love, love, love how color is used as a character in this book, because she's in these warm golden tones, and I'm assuming she comes from an African country. I want to say Somalia, but I actually don't know if I know that. Somalia, Eritrea, maybe Sudan, actually. And I was going to say, or Ethiopia, but I actually don't know. And let me just, it might be Sudan, actually, because the author, I think, is from Sudan. Okay, yeah, Sudanese child. Okay. So she's, so her land is warm, dry, and all these colors in some ways represents her land. And then she's in this new place and then has all these new colors, these cooler tones to represent this new place. And then and then she meets a little girl, and the girl starts to help her understand words that, she'll point to things at the park, for instance, or, children pick up so much easier than adults because they're immersed in it. They're just listening and learning that way. And then by the end of the story, she has a new blanket, which is a little bit of everything. And so she's now collected enough words where she's got her old blanket and her new blanket, and they kind of all work together. I love, love, love this book because, again, it could be something for your own situation. Maybe you had to leave your home country for a new country, and it can also be for children who are in communities where you do have a lot of people who are coming in from other countries, other places. Maybe they don't know the language. Maybe they're just brand new. It could just be, I've just changed schools and I don't know anyone. And I love how this book is written and the sweetness and the caring of each of these children. So another really great book. I want to share a book that's also about refugees or migration. It's called The Journey, and this was actually such a painful book for me to read. I was just in tears more than the children. And it's a story about a family who had to flee a country because of war. I believe the father had died in the war. I can't remember exactly for this particular story. And they go with some things, but by the end of it, they are escaping with basically the clothes on their back. And this story is written, it's a collection, the author says it's a collection of lots of refugee stories. And the thing is that in our own community, I know at least 3 families, and probably way more, who have refugee stories of them literally, I want to say, escaping their country with nothing. And one of my friends, the mom was actually pregnant with twins and had little children, and that just causes so much anxiety in me, because I think, oh my goodness, you've got your children and you're pregnant and you're trying to flee a war-torn country. It's a heavy book in my opinion, but surprisingly, the children seem to handle it a lot better than I did. But I think that this is a really, really good book to have on hand, to read through and to bring up, even as you're doing your history units, or just as an opening activity, or just something that you read once in a while. Maybe there's a new person at your school, or maybe you discovered someone's refugee story that you didn't know before because maybe it was very painful for them and they never shared it. Whatever it is, this really gives you, I feel it gives you really, really good insight on how it actually feels to flee a country, and the fear that you have, and just the grief, not just the grief for the people you've lost, but the grief of leaving your country. And I don't think we really acknowledge that grief so much, because sometimes you're in a new place that maybe is better, maybe not, or maybe you escape with your life, so you should be grateful. But you're completely forgetting that, again, like your home country, your home itself, that's also like a person. And to acknowledge the grief, I think is really important, that we're not just diminishing that aspect of a refugee's life. So another amazing story. The reason why I've included it here is because the majority of the refugees in the world today are Muslims, and So I've included it with the hijab stories because I felt like they coordinated in a way. Another story that I think is not specifically for Muslim families, I could be mistaken. I think it's just for anyone who has to leave a place, not just as a refugee, but maybe they're just moving because they're moving or moving countries. It's called The Map of Good Memories. And I want to bring up something about this book that's just kind of unique, or I've only seen it in a few books so far. This is actually stone paper, and I love the texture and the feel and the drape of this paper. Does paper have a drape? I'm not sure, but it does to me. This is water and tear resistant. It's produced without water, without trees, and without bleach. It saves 50% of energy compared to normal paper. I love the feel of it, and it also, I don't know if the company who makes stone paper also produces the inks that go along with it or the printing. I'm not sure. But the two books that I have, I love, love, love the illustrations. They're so, so beautiful. And I don't know if that's just because of the printing or because of the paper. So this is a really beautiful book about a girl who is going to be leaving her town, and she's going to make a map of good memories. She's going to remember all the places of her town and all the memories that she had of those places before she leaves and goes to a new town and makes new friends. So I really like this. Again, if you have in your community, in your classroom, a person who has come from a different place, this helps you have some insight in maybe how that person is feeling having had to leave. And it could even just be from one city to the next. It doesn't have to be from one country or one state to another. It could literally be, I've moved one town over and I'm grieving the loss of my own town. That's okay. Those feelings could be the same as someone who's moved farther away. And so I like this book for that reason. Plus, it's just a really beautiful book. Okay, the last two books I want to share with you are two books on Malala. This is Malala's Magic Pencil. And again, this woman wears hijab, and so I wanted to include it with these books, even though this is a story about her life, not so much that she's wearing hijab, but she is a Muslim, so there's some insight in some of the things that she's doing as a Muslim. But also it's important to note that the people who were occupying or terrorizing the area, though they were claiming that what they were doing was from Islam, it is not from Islam, and I don't need to defend Islam or explain it or explain what they were doing that's wrong. It's just a single statement. What they were doing, people can claim that it's in the name of all kinds of things, and it's not, and that's sufficient to explain that part of the story. But it's a really beautiful story. It does have some parts of the story that may be sensitive to children, since she was shot in the head. So if my daughter and I proceeded through those pages very slowly because it was a sensitive issue for both of us, but it does have such a beautiful ending. It's very inspiring, and I just really loved both of the books that we got. This one is The Right to Learn. This is Malala's story, and both of the stories are beautifully written. Both of the books have beautiful illustrations. I would not really be able to recommend one over the other, except this one is a little bit more lengthy. This one is a little bit more like a biography versus this one, which really focuses on, I think, a portion of her life. It's a little bit more of a storybook, probably better for an even younger student. And this one has some, I think it's a little bit heavier, and it's a little bit more about her biography, is probably the only ways that I could really distinguish between the two books. And it's also a little bit lengthier. Actually, it's quite a bit lengthier. There's a lot more text for the pictures. But both of them, I would highly recommend. My daughter loves Malala's story. She's also listened to the audiobook. I think the autobiography by Malala, I believe she also is the one who narrates it, loves that audiobook, listens to it often. And so, and by the way, I didn't mention this, but Ibtihaj Muhammad also has an audiobook. I'm sorry that I don't remember the names, but on the blog post that accompanies this video, you'll find all of the books and where you can find them, as well as the 2 audiobooks that I'm mentioning right now. So my daughter is really enthralled by both of those women's stories, and so I wanted to include them here as part of this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to hear your book recommendations as well. You can leave them down in the comment section below. If you'd like to see some of my other tutorials and videos, you can tap on the screen, and don't forget to check out the blog post that accompanies this video. You can find that link down in the description box below. And if you want to see what we're reading on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at Pepper and Pine.